Alright, we are coming down to the last few construction details. It's still more finishing to do, but until the weather breaks and the snow goes away, I can't do much. So I'm installing our cap rails here. And I've mixed up a batch of bedding compound, thinned it way down until it's brushable. It's kind of a soupy molasses kind of texture here right now. And I've added just a little bit of pine tar to it just for fun. Just so there's a little bit of a pine tarry smell sneaking out of here. I usually go with heavier bedding compound, but I do need to make sure I can continue on with this finishing as quickly as possible, and the last thing I want is bedding compound squeezing out over time. And especially because this is going to go down to a very hot climate, I don't want it suddenly expanding out at a much later date. So putting it on thinner in the first place is just going to help to avoid that. Because these parts are pre-finished, I don't need to use any bedding compound between them at all, but it's still good practice, so I do it. I suppose one could glue this stuff on. Joe was just all on about wanting to be able to move stuff around, so I figured we'll just mechanically fasten it on. Joe can play around with it. If he blows a bunch of holes in it that he doesn't like, he can always replace them easily enough because they're not exactly complicated. And if you really wanted to glue them on instead and screwing them on, you could do that too. Just gotta scuff up that finish and apply an appropriate adhesive. Making sure there's no drips of varnish that are going to hold this up. Let's find my fasteners. Okay, and we'll use the oarlocks themselves to help locate these things.
I was cleaning her shoe when it clicked on the trot over in the bright morning dew. We brushed and we braided, then we danced and chewed. It was a mutual arrangement we all into.
We're just going to leave all these screws exposed. I prefer bunged fasteners, but Joe said he's fine with exposed ones. It certainly saves a bunch of time. I also wanted to do that just to make this more easily replaceable. Okay, so there we go with that bit. Now we have the oarlock pads themselves to put on there. Going up to some hefty number 12 screws for this. Now I think I need to remount my hole a little bit here in order to get the oarlock to drop in properly, but that's fine. I kind of anticipated that, and I just wanted to make sure that it was all going to line up properly to start with.
Can she run in the rain? Can she make it up the mountainside? Can she make
Okay, and the last one here.
I have often wondered if she'll go beyond the fence. Will she keep on moving on, or stay in what could have been? Will she keep on moving onward, or stay in what could have been?
Something I don't do, and I fully admit I should do, is make a note of how long the fasteners are for any given location. So I did have a bag of fasteners set up specifically for putting the oarlock pads in, and a separate bag for doing all of these, just so that as I was drilling the holes, I knew exactly what size fasteners were going in there. But if you have sort of a mix of them, it's a good idea to even break those apart and label them a little bit more carefully. On the other side, I'd forgotten that I was using shorter ones on the outboard face and longer ones in the inboard, and I was playing around with the different sizes, trying to remember what I was doing. So I could have saved myself that moment of confusion. Okay, now we'll just clean this up. I'll just finish up with the cloth with some solvent on there. And remember, this is linseed oil that's in these products, so you got to make sure you dispose of those rags safely. I keep a bucket of water outside the shop doors and just drop the rags in there immediately. I don't let them hang around in the shop any length of time at all. You don't want to run the risk of forgetting and finding out the hard way that a rag is bursting into flames on top of your workbench. Just hit it with a dry rag to finish things off. And I'll probably come back later on, a couple hours, maybe even tomorrow, with some another round of solvent, just to make sure that I've taken care of any squeeze out before I start putting finishes on. We're going to varnish over top of all of these joints. Our oarlock pads came up pretty good, I think. I'm happy with them. Fantastic. I need to get going on the bottom of this. So we caught a break in the weather. I've been able to set my tent back up, get that other boat that was in here out of my way. The paint on the inside worked out pretty good. I'm quite happy with it. I love the color, actually. I really like the color. Been trying to get this stem head painted out white. We decided we didn't like it gray. But that elixir white is not the opacity on it is not great. I'm not thrilled with that. So on the bottom, we're definitely going to be doing a primer of oil-based stuff that I know is going to get this white quickly. Within 2 coats, it's going to be white, white, white. So we're going to do that. Now I made a new dolly for this thing, because the little furniture dolly was fine for what I needed to do before, but now it's got to flip over and have a good solid resting position. So I've made this real simple dolly using just some large diameter casters and a few bits of 2x4. So we can get this thing hoisted up and rolled over, and we can move on to finishing up the outside. I think we'll use the cam straps again. I still need to put more varnish on the shear, I think I'm just gonna wait till this is flipped back over and then I can tackle it then. It just makes more sense to just to not have fresh varnish while it's resting on something, because it always mars it up. Unless it's been sitting around for at least a week, the varnish is usually too soft to be having anything resting on it without it marking. So it has been sitting for probably a week now without that varnish being touched, so it makes sense to just go ahead and flip it over now and finish up the varnish afterwards. So let's see. I want to get this thing centered. Roughly. Okay. One of these days we're going to come up with a slightly more efficient way of lifting these boats, but this pretty much works for the most part. Okay, get that up. Get that up. All right. What I don't like about this setup right now is that these cam straps, there's only so far they can lift before they bottom out on me. And then getting them back down is a pain. Okay, what I think we'll do, I think we'll just roll this out and then flip it and then roll this back under. All right, here we go. Okay. Over. Cart. Okay, that should be about right. Huh, I thought I had this thing sized a bit better so that it would land on the cap rails, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. It'll just catch. Okay, now to get this down, this is the tricky part. Make it on both sides. I think so. Let's just leave this. We'll leave this on here for the moment. Now back here. Not quite. She's certainly supposed to be sitting a little further back. I'm going to shift it. I'd hate to have this thing sort of jump off the ears of the dolly here by accident. Well, things come in a little lower than I expected. I thought I would have, I guess I'd forgotten when I had it on the strong back that it was up another good 6 inches. Oh well, that's fine. You can't have it both ways. It needed to be the same, you know, a good working height from both sides, and there's only so far you can bend over to reach into the bottom if it isn't low enough. Okay, fantastic. Real simple. Just a big disc made with a hole saw. I'd have a piece of red cedar or something. Yellow cedar. A few scraps of plywood to bolt. Works great. All right, now I got to give this thing a really good thorough once over. There's about 1 million little bits and pieces of fairing compound where I was filling holes and things like that. And then before the day's done, I really got to make sure if there's any more that need hitting, I got to hit them today so that they can get sanded out tomorrow. And then we're ready for paint. The other dinghy I got out in the tent is ready. It'll be ready for another coat of paint tomorrow, so I can hit it and then get it out of the way and move this one to its place, I suppose. So I guess it depends on what the weather's doing. It's funny seeing it upside down again, hey? Suddenly it's small again. Goes from big to small to big to small. I don't know what this weighs. It doesn't feel light. I've ordered a scale that's got enough capacity to lift it in one go, and usually I kind of do a bunch of jiggery-pokery to try and figure out how much stuff weighs just using a 50-pound old spring-loaded fish scale, but I decided to give myself a break. Spend 50 bucks and have something that'll make this job a lot easier in the future. Okay. Mr. Sandy, where's my gear? I'll just be doing this for the next hour. You don't need to watch that. Well, finishing this boat has certainly been a slog, but I can finally see light on the horizon. So we're going to stop right here and we'll pick it up again in the next video. Now, I want to remind you that these videos are supported by my followers on Patreon, and this week I want to thank Godens Halter for joining us. If you'd like to help support the videos, please follow the links in the corner or down in the description to join me on Patreon. I hope you join me again next time on Building the Catalina Wherry. See you later, folks.